So let's get to the really fun part.
Okay.
So let's talk about the exit and let's talk about all of the light work that you're doing. And I want to go deep into the book.
I'll make a very long story short as possible. I was 5.5 years in. Simply Be took off, Jamie. It was a rocket ship. My trajectory and my P&L looked like this.
How did you know how to build a business like that?
Well, I had built a business before with Cheeky. While it failed, I learned a lot of incredible lessons and applied those learnings. So like I was able to really get my profitability right, my team right, my culture right, my strategy for marketing right, like quickly.
But you did it on intuition. You didn't have to go to business school.
No.
That's what's important for people to hear.
Yeah. I did read a book I recommended to everybody called Traction by Gino Wickman, which gives you a true roadmap of how to build a business model and a business plan for an entrepreneurial type of business. I read that book in 2 days. It like lit my circuits up and I'm like, this is how I'm going to do this thing. I feel like I also hit it when the iron was hot when it came to personal branding. This was like in 2017. Now everybody's talking about it, but we were kind of a novelty back then. No one was really offering it as a service. I just was in the right time in the right place. I was on purpose. I was in alignment. I mean, I'm just going to say that I'm a damn good leader. I'm a really amazing CEO. I learned on the job some hard lessons with Simply Be, but it was really revealed to me that I am meant to be in that role and I can handle it to a degree. I put some really amazing executive people around me. I hired a COO. I brought in a CFO. I put in place a board. I don't have to do that as a privately held company, but I wanted a quarterly check-in with experienced, seasoned people who had been there and done that. So I really buttoned up my business, hired a consultant to help me with SOPs and process. But because it was such a rocket ship and because I had gone broke and I had been all of a sudden making all this money, my nervous system couldn't hold it all. I really was never truly in abundance. When I look back at the Simply Be era, I was constantly running from scarcity. And the business blew up in 21 with the launch of my first book, Be. And I went from 9 people to 25 people in less than 12 months. So I had a massive payroll. I was the main business development breadwinner. I made it rain. So I was holding up the sky, trying to manage the company, being the spokesperson for the book, on airplanes every month, hosting my own podcast, trying to have a life, be a wife, take care of my body. And in January of 2022, I moved down to Nashville with my husband. We rented an Airbnb for a few months in the winter on 10 acres of land. And I make that point to be for a reason because I had been living in the concrete jungle of Chicago. And I get down to Nashville in the winter of 22 and I start unraveling. I couldn't leave the house. I had no energy to shower. I cried every day, all day. And I just kept saying to myself, I think I'm just really tired. I'm so tired. I had no energy and I was dark. But I couldn't put words to what was happening to me until I had a session with my therapist. And she diagnosed me with situational depression from the burnout because it was real physical, mental, emotional depletion. I had run my body into the ground towards the end of that Simply Be chapter. So long story short, 22 was brutal, dealing with burnout, depression, rage. And at the end of that year, I actually had to reorg my company. When you hire up that fast, you hire, unfortunately, the wrong people. I had to fire 3 of my leadership team, reorg my entire company in Q4 of 22. And then I had a trip planned to Egypt. Fortuitously, I'd planned this trip a year before. And I remember getting on this airplane to Cairo and feeling like, I don't know how I'm going to make it through a 2.5 week spiritual pilgrimage. My soul was cigarette ash. I hated my business. I wanted to burn it all down. And I'm a very spiritual person. I've been on the path for a long, long, long time. And Egypt, I say, chose me as much as I chose it because I went to that country and I died in that country. I had a full-on identity and ego death in that country. And I came home a new person. And it's actually the opening section of my book. The introduction is called I Am New. Because that was the only way I could describe myself and how that experience was when I came home.
What was the actual situation? Was it, is that like a psychedelic experience?
No, it's a great question.
People might wonder that because you hear ego death a lot when talking about psychedelics.
There were no medicines in Egypt. I have done psychedelics quite a few times. And so I know the feeling very well. There's no real way to describe what happens to you in these temples. These temples are alive. There's frequencies in their walls. I had full on hallucinations and psychedelic vision and clairaudient messages from the goddesses, white light activations where my body dissolved into the ethers, like that kind of thing. We went to like 9 temples. I mean, it's a recollection of I believe your codes, your truths going through these temples. 2023 was really the beautiful aftermath of that trip, where I fortunately had hired a very effective COO right around that time who got me out of the weeds. That was such a divine blessing. And then I started playing again. I had space for joy. I started healing my nervous system. I got this second book deal. I wrote this book in 3 months. It was so creative and juicy and flowy and fun. I started hosting retreats for women across the country and for fun, again, just because I wanted to be in community with women, and they sold out in less than a matter of weeks. And then this company over the summer called Hawk Media emailed me wanting to know if I would sell my business. And I was so ready. They had actually emailed me a few times throughout the years, and I was never ready. My business was in a better place. We were operationally humming. We had the best clients. My team was incredible. I hadn't had any attrition in like 2 years. We were like really in this sweet spot. And I say to founders who are interested in selling your business, like, your business has to be ready for sale. It has to be an asset, not a lifestyle business. And I had built an asset, but you as the founder have to be emotionally, mentally ready to let go. And I really was. So it all aligned very divinely, and sold the business officially, signed my papers in December of 23, announced it January 24. And it's been a whole new life, Jamie.
So now you are at this really amazing point, and it definitely seemed from social media, from me, the viewer, to just be all like joy. Was there any emotional hangover, or were you just so ready for what's next?
Oh, there was definitely an emotional hangover. The announcement, I feel like I broke my corner of the internet when I announced I sold my business in January, rebranded my life, launched my own website, rebranded my podcast, and, really am now putting myself out there as a teacher, as a coach, as an author, doing my own personal brand, no agency behind me. I work with a coach myself. I feel like you always have to keep your game on. And this is the spiritual kind of side of me coming out, but I would love to offer this to your community. I'm very much like a quantum manifester. Like I move really fast is what I should say. She is a nickname for me. She's like, you're like galactic Taylor Swift. Like you just like go up and like you move at the speed of light. And that's what I did. I sold my business. I launched the new one. I moved cities. We formally moved out of Chicago and into Nashville, like a whole new life within a matter of months. And she said to me, Jessica, you have to learn how to move at the speed of life. Life has a greater plan. You actually aren't the creator of your reality. You are a co-creator of your reality. And so there has been a bit of a come down, but I'm super aligned and it was all for me. And also back to the business, like, it's not yours. Like day one.
Right.
You're like, wait, why didn't I get invited to that meeting? How come you didn't consult with me about that situation? How come I didn't even hear about that? Like it was like that for the first few months.
Wow.
And a lot of anxiety and anger and frustration comes up, and you're like, check yourself, Jessica, this is what you signed up for. It was just very abrupt.
Yeah.
And I've definitely learned to surrender. I'm still very much enmeshed, but it's not the same level. I'm good with where it is.
And it gave you space
for
this entire chapter.